Let's talk about something we've all faced. Sales cycles that just drag on, chasing leads that ultimately go nowhere. Well, the FAINT framework, it's the perfect antidote. It's a really smart strategic model that's designed to help you zero in on those high-intent, sales-ready opportunities and, find your next big customer. So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start by defining the framework, what makes it so effective. Then we're going to dive into each of its 5 pillars. First, funds and authority, and then interest, need, and timing. After that, we'll get practical and talk about how to actually use it. And maybe most importantly, we'll cover the common pitfalls you really want to avoid. At its core, FAINT is so much more than just another acronym or some box-ticking exercise. It's a really rigorous needs analysis. It forces you to get a deep understanding of your customer's world before you even think about selling them anything. I mean, think about it this way. Are you spending all your time and energy chasing a whole school of minnows, just hoping you'll catch a few? Or are you positioning yourself to land a whale? FAINT is the framework that helps you do exactly that, and it's going to dramatically boost your chances of success. So how do we start finding these so-called whales? Well, it all kicks off with the first 2 pillars of the FAINT framework: funds and authority. You can think of these as the ultimate gatekeepers. They tell you if a prospect has the real, tangible ability to actually make a deal happen. Okay, first up, F is for funds. This one's all about figuring out a prospect's direct financial ability to invest in what you're offering. It sounds simple, but it's an absolutely critical first step. But listen, it's not as simple as just asking, hey, do you have the budget? And this is where the FAINT framework gets really, really smart. See, it breaks funds into 2 separate parts. It's not just about their raw financial capacity. It's also about the ROI justification. Can you build a knockout business case that shows your solution won't just pay for itself, but will actually generate a serious return on their investment? That right there is the key to unlocking the whole funds pillar. All right, next up is authority. This is all about cutting through the organization chart to figure out who, or more accurately, all the who's, that actually have the power to approve this thing and sign on the dotted line. And this, right here, is where so many deals fall apart. People think they're selling to one person, but the reality is they're selling to a committee. Get this, the average B2B decision today involves 6 to 10 different stakeholders. If you aren't talking to all of them, your deal is probably dead in the water. So what do? Well, you have to map out the entire decision ecosystem. You've got to identify every single person who gets a vote. And then, and this is key, you have to tailor your message for each one of them. The CFO, they care about ROI. The head of operations, they care about efficiency. The IT security manager, they care about data protection. You have to speak their language, address their specific concerns, and that's how you build the consensus you need to get the deal across the finish line. Okay, let's move on to the next 3 pillars: interest, need, and timing. With these, we're shifting our focus from the prospect's capacity to act to their motivation and their readiness to act. This is where we start to figure out their true intent. Interest is all about measuring how engaged a prospect is. We're looking for those unspoken buying signals, the digital breadcrumbs they leave behind, that show they're actively looking for a solution. So how do we actually measure interest? Well, we look for those digital breadcrumbs. Did they download your white paper? Did they spend a bunch of time on your pricing page? These are all really strong signs of genuine interest. But just tracking this stuff is only half the battle. The real magic happens when you get what we call an intent match. That's when you give them the exact piece of content that answers the question they have in that very moment. It's almost like reading their mind, and it is incredibly powerful. Now, need. This is where the real consultative work really begins. It's all about finding that gap between a prospect's current problem, the pain they're feeling right now, and where they want to be in the future. Okay, time to put on your detective hat. A prospect will almost never tell you their real need right away. They'll give you the stated need, like, I need new software. But your job is to dig deeper. What's the real business problem driving that request? And if you're a true pro, you'll even uncover the secret personal need. Maybe they're trying to get a promotion. Whatever it is, if you can connect with that, you've probably got a customer for life. I absolutely love this quote. People buy for their reasons, not for yours. It's so simple, but it's so profound. It's the perfect reminder that we aren't just selling products or services, we're selling solutions to people's problems. And if you can't connect what you do to their core drivers, their hopes, their fears, their ambitions, you're just never going to make that sale. And finally, we get to timing. This pillar helps us figure out the urgency. Is this a nice to have for next year, or is it a we need this yesterday kind of situation? Timing is all about aligning with the buyer's actual operational reality. So, how do you create that urgency? You've got to look for leverage moments. A leverage moment is a tension peak, a shift in the market, a new regulation, a move by a competitor, something that makes doing nothing no longer an option. That's the compelling event that forces your prospect to act now. And once you find that moment, you give them a clear, step-by-step implementation plan that shows them exactly how to get from where they are to where they want to be. All right, so let's look at how we actually apply this framework. This is not about running down a checklist. It's about taking on a consultative, questioning mindset that builds trust and uncovers information in a really natural way. So, what does this look like day to day? Well, it starts with qualifying early. Maybe you use something like a demonstration close to check on their financial readiness before you even start a demo. From there, you map out their whole journey with content. This is where something called Answer Engine Optimization, or AEO, is huge. It's all about creating content that directly answers the questions your prospects are typing into Google. Of course, you also have to audit your own assets to make sure you can actually deliver. And finally, you automate as much of this as you can with lead scoring, so you can focus your precious time on the hottest leads. Oh, this slide is pure gold. Seriously, this is the consultant's matrix, and it literally gives you the perfect question to ask for each pillar of the framework. My absolute favorite is the one for need. If you could wave a magic wand, how would your situation be different? Wow. That question gets right to the heart of everything and uncovers that true underlying need. And that leads us perfectly to this powerful quote. The person who asks questions has control. This is the fundamental mindset you have to have. You're not there to pitch, you're there to learn. You're not interrogating, you're leading a discovery process. By asking these strategic, thoughtful questions, you control the conversation and you guide it toward an outcome that's good for everyone. Okay, finally, let's talk about the common mistakes that can completely derail this whole process. Because knowing what not to do is every bit as important as knowing what to do when you're trying to implement the FAINT model. These right here are the classic deal killers. First, stop feature dumping. Seriously, nobody cares what your product is, they care what it does for them. Second, stop assuming that these B2B decisions are all logic. They're not. People buy on emotion and then they justify with logic. And finally, please stop treating this like a checklist. This is a conversation, not an interrogation. If you build trust, the sale will follow. And here you can see it all come together beautifully. Imagine a financial consultant using the FAINT framework. They quickly and effectively qualify a lead. They start with a direct question on funds. If they sense hesitation, they pivot to authority. They've already tracked interest online by seeing visits to a key page. And in the conversation, they shift from the technical talk of ROI to the emotional core need of retirement security, and then lock in the timing with a clear next step. That, my friends, is FAINT in action.